No, I just want to introduce
Okay, I'm Valerie Thomas, and I don't know why I volunteered for this, but I did.
What happened was we both submitted, and we realized that we basically had submitted the same talk. So Dave was like, can you please put your talk together? And we said, sure. So we did that about 30 minutes ago. Anyway. So I'm Gardner, and I'm a hacker, and not this kind of hacker, because the mask gets kind of hard and sweaty when you're doing it like this. So I'm the good kind of hacker. And I'm the co-founder of HackerCon. I'll do it. Which is held in Charleston, West Virginia in October every year. Go to hackercon.org if you want to check out more information. I'm also a volunteer for Hackers for Charity. Oh, here's the HackerCon shirt. Volunteers for Hackers for Charity. If you want to come see me, I'll be around somewhere, probably by the HSC booth. Go by and spend lots of money and give money to Johnny. Oh, here yourself.
Okay. So we're also doing an HFC fundraiser tonight before the party. I think we called it ZombieCon last year. So around the registration desk, about 7-ish, I'm going to be doing zombie makeup and makeovers. So if anybody wants to come be a zombie, all the proceeds go to HFC. It's like 10, 15, whatever you want to donate is fine. So come see me and I will zombify you. More than this talk is going to.
Beep. Okay, I'm also the president of AIDE, the Appalachian Institute for Digital Evidence at Marshall University, where I teach digital forensics and information security. So we have a conference in the spring. So come see us. We'll get dates up pretty soon. Also, run BlackRock Security, BlackRock Consulting with my friend Matt Perry. He may not be in the audience, so that's me.
All right, so I only have one intro slide. Mine's not nearly as creative. So I work for a company called SecureCon. We're Alexandria-based, DC area. We do cool things like vulnerability assessments and pen testing and whatnot. My specialty is more in the lines of engineering of the social kind and physical pen testing. So I mess with people's minds and break into buildings. But I also do a lot of training as well. So some of the ideas that are in this are kind of mashed together from where Bill and I have kind of combined just different ideas that have worked for us over the years. So I hope you enjoy.
Beep. So I'm also on the security awareness training framework, which is SAFFramework.org if you want to check out our work up to this point. It started actually 2 years ago at DerbyCon, and we've put out some material, but this is what we're going to present is separate, apart from what the SAP program is about. This is sort of our take on it, and we're also under contract to write a book, which you may see in the spring, hopefully. So, here's how security awareness should work. You can't really start until you have policies and procedures. You have to build basically an expectation of what the users can and cannot do. If you don't have those, go back to the Do Not Pass go back to square one and start with policies and procedures. Then typically we have user awareness training, which is the next level of security. Then once you have that, you can talk about the more technical stuff, such as patch management, log management, antivirus, IDS, security appliances, and finally metrics. So when you go through this process, you really have to start with policy and people. You need to secure the human, and the first two layers of this step is what you're doing is securing the human. And then you can go out and talk to the vendors about spending tens of thousands of dollars on your latest product that protects you from cyber APT in the cloud. So,
That was 3 shots for those of you who are playing the drinking game. Cyber APT and
So basically, security, we're doing it wrong. We're buying these blinky light boxes that people may not know how to log into after a couple weeks in their data center. You know, hey, I've got this wonderful product. That's really great, but what's the secure product doing for you? So we have IDS, logging servers, firewall, but there's, you know, how do we get around that? This is not a slide, but let's talk about how to get around all these wonderful things.
Thanks. He hands this off because he knows this is what I do. So, yeah, and I'm going to talk to this a little bit later. I sort of have a placeholder for it. You know, all the technology that we can get today is fantastic, right? It's red, it blinks, and it protects us. You know, but that next-gen firewall that you spent months configuring isn't going to protect you if I can get somebody on the inside to do something malicious for me. And that isn't necessarily on purpose. So we're not going to talk a whole lot about social engineering attacks, but I am going to go through a couple quick examples later on. But the bottom line is technology is not the answer. This is a people problem. This is a people industry. If you think this is a technology industry, I urge you to go read the news. Because none of these problems are happening because so-and-so's next-gen firewall failed. So it's kind of a different take, but once you go back and you start to look through all of the reports of so-and-so breach, whatnot, it all comes back down to people. So that's what we're looking to do here, is just kind of, for those of you who have been tasked to create an awareness training program and have never done it before, these are just some ideas that we have put together that have worked for us over the years. So I hope that it is helpful.
In this my last job, I now work in higher education. I'm an assistant professor, which is great. I teach defense against the dark arts, which I guess I'm Snape. I don't know. But my last job, I had to build a security awareness program because they didn't have one. So from scratch, and guess what my budget was? Zero. So what is security awareness training? And this is my definition that I came up with because, quite frankly, I don't like the definitions that are out there now. A formal program with the goal of training users of potential threats to an organization's information and how to avoid situations that might put the organization's data at risk. So when we say organization, that could be a company, that could be a nonprofit, it could be your user groups. So it's any organization. So this isn't really corporate specific. So why security awareness training? People are always the weakest link. We're human. We make mistakes. You know, if you have something that's a well-crafted phishing attack, you may be able to phish me. I mean, it happens. Actually, my roommate's wife got phished this morning, so he got a nice call about 6 o'clock. I clicked on this and it says I have a virus. So not all attacks are technical either. So we're talking about social engineering. That is not a technical attack. It's attacking the human. So who's familiar with the OSI model? Okay. Anybody want to go from layer 1 up to 7?
8, 9.
You can tell he's a professor.
See, this is the same thing I got on my network protocols class. So the highest level is always considered application, right? What's above that? The human. So you're attacking that layer of the OSI model, which is not really a part of the OSI model, but hey, it works for this, right? Yeah, that's true. So getting management buy-in, the first thing you're probably going to have to do is scare the pants off your management, or you're going to have a breach, unfortunately. Most people don't give a damn about information security awareness or information security until they have a breach. And one of the ways of selling it to them is to say you can develop policies, because managers love policies. They especially love policies that control people. You also can have policy enforcement. A lot of organizations have policies they don't enforce, which is good as having no policies at all. Cost savings, less breaches mean not as much downtime. If you're in a bill-per-hour paradigm and you can't work, you're not making money. And production increases for the same reason. If you're able to keep the information that you're working on secure, you're able to be up and running, so therefore you're more productive. So, targeted. Most attacks are targeted. Social engineering attacks are targeted. So not all users are the same. You've got sales guys out on the road. You've got mailroom guys. So do you give the same training to the sales guys as you give to the mailroom guys? No. It has to be targeted toward the individual and their role in the organization. The CEO is way more at risk because they have everything on their laptop. They have access to everything. They're going to have access to HR. They're going to have access to accounting. They're going to have access to proprietary information. Where the mailroom guy, if he gets phished, you have a breach, but you don't have the same sort of loss of information. And don't forget to train the IT department. We all know the IT guy that knows everything. Some of us in this room may have been one of those people one time. But just because you're technical and you work in information technology does not mean you know squat about security. A lot of people are focused on keeping the organization up and running instead of focusing on, well, what kind of risk does this put us at? And what can we do to reduce our risk? Which is usually something very simple. So different users encounter different risk. And then home users are totally different than corporate users. You wouldn't want to give corporate users the same information or the same sort of awareness training or education. There's a lot of debates about the difference between education and training. In my opinion, you have to have a culture of security awareness. So you call it training, you call it awareness either way, but you don't give corporate users the same information you give to home users. The risk is different. Home users aren't guarding your client's intellectual property. Yes, they do have things at risk, such as their, anything's personal information, but let's say that you're, I come from a law firm environment, so you've got all this data, which is proprietary, that may have contain a trade secret, like the formula for Coke, or you may be, in the case if you're doing medical malpractice defense, you're holding a bunch of medical records. So the risk is different for home users than it is for corporate users. Yeah.
Well, it's a question, comment. If a home user uses their home computer to hook up to the corporate network, aren't they also at risk?
Yeah, well then they become a corporate user. You basically take them and they become corporate users because you're using it in a corporate environment. Yes?
I'm not sure I agree with you. I wanted to just make a point that at work, corporate users are protecting corporate data. Home users want to protect their kids from bad data. They want to protect PII, which is the business version of personal information at home, from the bad guys. Why do you make a distinction in training when the only real distinction is the terminology used?
Because home users are less likely to be spearphished for information. They may get targeted attacks, but they're not targeted attacks that are as comprehensive and targeted. If I'm a bad guy and I want to steal the secret formula for Coke, I'm going to try a lot harder than if I'm trying to get your social security number and your credit card.
Yeah, but spear phishing is only a very small component of social engineering attacks that are done. Most of them are done wide net. Wouldn't that just be a particular focus of awareness training for certain members of the spear or whale fish potential in the corporate community?
Well, yes, you're right. I mean, I'm not saying you don't talk to home users about phishing. It's just that you have to think about what you're protecting. The sort of information that we give to corporate users are usually focused for home users, which I don't think is sufficient. I think we need to do a better job of corporate training than what we're doing now. So how often do you have awareness training when you get a new employee coming to the door? So You know, here's your tax forms. Here's your medical information. And oh, by the way, don't click shit. Okay, now, is anyone going to remember that for the 18 years that they worked there? No. So you have to do it, so there's, once a year is good. I mean, I used to work for lawyers, and they just never had the time to do anything like this. So we would do it at their yearly retreat. And for users that you can actually get to do it, or you can force to do it quarterly or continually. I've seen some awareness programs and campaigns that basically they would control the desktop. Every day you came and logged in, you had the new awareness message, or your background would change. It's with a new awareness message. So you're building actually a culture around security awareness. And most of it sucks. If you think about your own security awareness training that you've been through, it's boring. Sometimes it's ridiculous. It really needs to be more engaging. Because a canned security awareness program that you might buy may not be might not be any better than a blinking light box. So the most effective training is in person, personalized and targeted toward the people receiving the training based upon their role in the organization. And you don't have to spend a lot of money to build a good program. You know, if you're thinking about who people are and the risk that they face, and you can tell them that, hey, there's the risk, here's the risk, your data is at risk. A lot of people think, oh, nobody wants my stuff. But if you can say, this is the risk and this is how you defend against it, that's a better program than go to this website, watch this video, click on these links, sort of situation, which is very canned.
So I'm going to tell a quick little story here, once I get untangled. So a while back, I had a long-term client come to me, and they said, you know, next month is Security Awareness Month here, and we have this security day. So we bring in these different people, and they do talks, and they're vendors, and it's more driven toward our users, but our users never actually show up. It's always the IT people that come to talk to the vendors. Nobody's really interested in the way that we package security. What can you do? So I thought about it for a while, and I looked at the schedule from last year and the year before. And what I saw was more of the content looked like the left-hand side there. You know, lots of keywords like mandatory, and this is required, and this is your annual training briefing, and you must attend, and if you don't do it here, then you have to do it online. So I decided to just take everything that they did and do the opposite. So instead of saying anything about mandatory, required, you know, this is part of your job, I just decided, okay, well, what would people really want to hear about that has to do with security? So, hence the presentation to your right was born. And I didn't really give a lot of detail. That was all that I put on the schedule, how hackers and scammers are stealing your personal information. And that was it. So it's the day of the event, and I get down there and I'm starting to set up, and I politely decline their Windows laptop that they tried to give me. And, you know, the people are starting to trickle in. And we get started, and they're still trickling in, and they're still trickling in. And then they're standing along the back and wrapped around the side, and then finally they had to close the room, because the room just got too full, and fire code and whatnot. So I finished the presentation. I talked a lot about the same basic principles that these the traditional security programs do, but I just packaged it different. So it's all about how you package this information. If you make it interesting and you make it apply to your target audience, they're much more likely to come and actually listen to you. Instead of clicking next, 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 next on their CBT training that's required to make them secure. So I finished the presentation, and the leader of the cybersecurity group comes up by the time the crowd has gone away. You know, they're asking things like, you know, how do I use encryption, or what kind of password safe do I need to use? You know, can I have your slide deck? Can I have your card? Can you come talk to my kid's school about security? Can you come talk to my homeowners association? Because this is really good stuff and we need to know it. So when the director of security came up to me, he said, what did you do? He said, we've never had anybody turn out to this day like this. How did you do it? I said, well, I basically just took everything that you did and made it attractive. I didn't say that it was required. I didn't say that it was mandatory. I made it so that people were interested in it. So from that point on, they really decided that they needed to make a change in their awareness program. I said, okay, can you take this and apply these principles to the program that we have now? So sure. So I've kind of been consulting them here and there, and they're slowly starting to redo all of their material. Now the material itself really isn't all that different. You know, the fundamentals are still the same. Don't click things. You know, this is how you spot phishing. This is why it matters. But it's all about how you package it all together. So all of this information, no matter how great it is, if you don't present it properly, it's never going to get heard. So if you're having trouble with your program and you have marketing folks, go talk to them. That's what they do for a living. They take the same technical material that you use and they make it attractive and they make it so that other people can understand it. Because what you and I understand, your average user doesn't. So I really encourage you, once you get your program together, really take the time to consult with folks that actually make this material for a living. You know, they sell things for a living. You need to sell your program the same way.
So the first step, and we are going to go through some steps here to help you understand what you're building. Part of this is to give you a framework to say, here's first step, second step, third step, fourth step, and this is how you can present it so that people will listen to you. So what you hear all the time is, nobody wants to steal our data. Well, they're wrong. It's public information anyway. I recently did an assessment for a governmental organization. They're like, it's all out on the website. I'm like, really? You're publishing social security numbers and PII to your website? And then it's regulatory. If you can use regulatory requirements as the, let's call it not the stick but the hammer, to basically give them, make them set up and pay attention to security, it's a good starting point. Regulatory requirements does not fix all your problems, but it gives you a baseline. And breach notification laws, which is another way of saying, hey, look, your state has a breach notification law. Maybe you want to be compliant with it. One of the things I came into recently is people who are having to renew their insurance policies, whether it's just a business continuation policy or cyber insurance. And they ask about security awareness. And as a result, that's something else that will motivate them to do security awareness training. So yes, you have to convince them that people want their stuff. So what's the motivation of attackers? Money is the big thing. And I'm preaching to the choir in this room, I'm sure, but identity theft, industrial espionage, hacktivism, and yes, we threw cyber war in there, just for good measure, and bragging rights. And the reason I throw it in the slide, even though I'm preaching to the choir, is these are the things you need to tell your users, because they don't know. They're not particularly as in tune with things that are going on, or some of the aspects of what's going on in the hacking scene, so you have to educate your users. So the other thing you do is show them the cost of data breaches. And this is relatively up to date. This is probably about 6 months or so out of the date, but there are sources on the internet that says this is how much a data breach costs. You're going to have a mess to clean up. You're going to have to bring in third parties to try to figure out what went out the door, and clean up the mess that was left behind, whether that mess is on your servers or that mess is to a regulatory body once you start writing checks for HIPAA violations or to breach notification laws. So here's some of the examples I use as threats because they're kind of generic and they fit a specific profile, so Russian business network, Chinese hackers. Is anybody from India here? Chinese did it. Hacktivism, anonymous, and we throw cyber war back in there again. Just,
Great.
I didn't bring anything to grab.
Here.
So, Russian business network, RBN, multi-face crime organization, likes to steal credit card personal information. They also kill people, sell and run drugs, peddle child porn, that sort of thing. You got multiple revenue streams. Chinese hackers, they're basically after your intellectual property and their APT. That's the origination of APT was originally applied to Chinese hackers. Face it, the Chinese didn't just break into Google and steal some passwords. They stole the Google password system. So, hacktivism, our friends, the nonviolent use of illegal and illegally ambiguous tools in order to deface a website. Although they do steal some data sometimes, we've all heard of various hacking groups who have done things allegedly to protest things. And cyber war, which is defined as nation state against nation state. We throw in, at least in my program, I used to throw it in just to make some distinctions. There's a debate about whether cyber war actually exists or not, or if it's cyber espionage, etc. But your users need to know a little bit about, yes, this is what it is, this is the way that some people see it. So most attacks are targeted. So I always work with lawyers. This is a case of a targeted attack against a lawyer. And I use heavy examples, and I change it based upon the people I'm talking to. So if I'm talking to accountants, I actually go look for database stories involving accountants. If I'm talking to doctors, I go out and look at data breach stories involving doctors. If I'm talking to lawyers, I talk about data breach stories involving lawyers. And this is one where there's an email from a Hong Kong businessman saying, somebody owes me money, can you collect it for me? Sure. So they collect the money, take their cut, because they are lawyers, and wire the money to Hong Kong. Well, guess what? The check's bad, so they are almost out the entire amount. Here's the defacement, the famous defacement of the law firm in Washington, D.C., who defended Marines who were accused of killing a bunch of Iraqi civilians. Well, our friends at Anonymous didn't like that, so they defaced the page and stole their email. And in the case of this firm, I think they got a call from Gawker saying, hey, did you know your face was defaced? And they're like, really? We'll call you back. They had no idea. So as of the last time I looked, they still don't have a website. Yeah, we all know this. We know this, guys. In late 2009, 2010, the FBI released a series of warnings to the lawyers and public relations firms saying you're being targeted based on the fact that criminals think you have money. And I always say if they saw the student loan load of a young lawyer, they wouldn't think they had money. But another law firm story. China derailed Chinese hackers. I'm looking for the word Mandian in there somewhere. Anyway, they derailed a $40,000 potash acquisition, allegedly, and there's that much money in potash in the wrong business. But that's another example of a database, a data breach involving lawyers. I'm entirely too hyped up on caffeine, so I'm trying to slow down a little bit. So who's responsible for security? Everyone! Good, slide work. So everyone's responsible for security. You can't go to every user and stand over them while they're clicking links.
I like to with a really big camera.
You can't stop users from opening attachments. You can't stop anyone clicking links. And you also really shouldn't call your users stupid. They don't like that. So the purpose of education is to further educated people about the threats that face their data. So passwords, we've all seen this, right? This sucks. You know why? Because it's not long enough for one thing. 7 characters. You probably should be at 14, 15 characters. Yeah, don't use your name, your real name, your username. So the purpose of this slide is you need to have a password policy. You know, you just can't have, you have to give users some guidance about what they can or what they should do. You just don't throw them to the wolves and say, make a password. 1, 2, 3, 5, 7. That's banana, I like that one. No. Think about some of the passwords. I've seen passwords in engagements that would curl your hair. And you think this would never happen again, people won't use weak passwords, but they do. You leave them up to their own devices, and they're typically lazy, and they see a password as just another way of slowing them down while they're trying to do their job. So give them some guidance about passwords. And you don't want to come up with a policy that's so damn complex that they can't remember their password. I will give them one out, which is if you want to write down a password, I have to say it's totally fine. You keep it in your wallet. That's where you keep your credit cards, that's where you keep your money, so that's a good place to keep passwords.
Just not PIN numbers for your credit card.
Well, that's probably a bad idea too.
So do we add pickpocketing to physical security assessments?
Do I?
Do we add pickpocketing to physical assessments?
I guess you're going to have to, right? Thanks, Bill.
I'm going to have to update my statement of work. So I use this picture to demonstrate how silly password reuse is. So a lot of our typical users, and really our IT people, we're really the most guilty now, aren't we? We're really bad about reusing the same password. But when I'm doing pen tests and I find a magic password, what's the first thing that I do? I write a script that goes out and checks it everywhere, exactly, and you know what? It always pops. So when you start to illustrate this to your users about, hey, this is really silly, you probably really shouldn't do this, you know, don't just give them the problem, you need to give them a solution to go along with it. So I've been pushing password safes a lot to my users lately, mainly because some of the cooler ones, like 1Password, they have the password generator already built in. So there's no more 125 banana. All they have to do is click generate, and then all they have to do is click save. And then when they want to log in, all they have to do is click copy and paste. It makes it a lot easier for them. 1, because they don't have to remember anything. 2, because they don't have to think of a new password. And 3, they don't have to think at all. So as long as you're doing good backups on your password save, you're usually pretty good. I've been pushing this recently to users, but they're starting to get a little confused about it. So you have to explain when you tell them about a password safe that it's actually encrypted and that they're not just giving the IT department their passwords, because that was a little misunderstanding there in the beginning. So I assure them that it's safe and that they can use this to keep all of their passwords in instead of writing them under their keyboard or using the same one over and over again. You want this one? Oh, this is yours?
And I would say that that's important. You need to give people solutions, not just throw up walls of, oh, you can't do that, it's not secure. Oh, that's a bad idea. You need to give them solutions so that they can work through whatever the problem is. So give them some ideas, although I'm not a big fan of password vault. Well, I'm waiting for a password service to get compromised personally. So you also need to explain to your users that they need to lock their machines, and this was a constant struggle in my last job. People who would sit down at their computer would have the same access as they were. So it's important to tell them that, and then when they don't do it, you give them one of these. That was very popular at my last job. You got those damn cards with you again? So attachments, of course, be cautious of attachments. Phishing, call and verify, get an email from Bank of America, you need to change your password, actually go to the Bank of America website and check it out. Don't open sufficient email. Don't click links in spam. This is yours.
So when I tell people not to click things, I also like to give them a picture to associate with it. So this is pretty classic, for demonstrating what a phishing attack looks like. But it's important to step through it with your users because they may not understand all of the factors that go in there. And for me, in my experience, the biggest one that trips them up is the logo. Well, it's got the logo. That means it's good, right? I mean, nobody else would use their logo in a bad way. When I make my phishing emails for assessments, that's the first thing that I do. So after you tell them not to click stuff, you need to show them what they're not supposed to be clicking and why. So I use this example to kind of break it down for them in a simpler way, and then I go into ones that are more detailed toward their job. So this is a really good starting point, but you'll need to tailor this to whoever your target audience is. Oh, that looks like yours.
Can you tell me where this short link goes to?
No.
Can you tell me where this QR code goes to? Why the hell are you clicking them?
Where at?
Good. No, actually that's 127.0.0.1, but you can't tell that. And your users need to understand the inherent dangers of link shorting services and also QR passwords, which you have an interesting story about QR passwords, right?
Oh, I do. I think we just
QR
squeeze this
codes,
in.
excuse me.
Yeah, QR, whatever.
QR passwords, whatever.
So on a recent social engineering engagement, some of the objectives were just to see how long it would take people to report silly things. So we used the QR code generator and the social engineering toolkit. Thank you, Dave. And we made up flyers for free pizza from a local pizza joint. But they had to scan the QR code to get the coupon. So then we went out about 9:30 in the morning after everybody was there for work, and we put them on everybody's car. And then everybody scanned because they wanted their free pizza. And nobody reported it because they didn't think that it was suspicious. They also didn't control access to their parking lot, but that's a separate issue. But I really try to teach my users, just don't, okay? Just don't. There's no coupon there, there's nothing special, just stay away from QR codes because you can't tell where they're going to go until it's too late. So in addition to teaching them about links and QR codes and shortened links and whatnot, I also take a little bit of time to talk about ad banners. And I had to use this example because I thought it was just beautiful. But it's actually an article about phishing scams with a big, Canadian pharmacy ad down there at the bottom. I have a lot of trouble with my users and my family clicking on these things. So now they're even starting to pop up on Facebook, right? Because everybody wants to know how Rachel Ray lost 37 pounds without dieting. So it's important to teach them not to click on stuff, but it's also important to teach them what not to click on too. So it's not always just links. Oh, little thingies. Okay, cool.
Sorry, that's probably leftover.
I think it was, but it's all right. So we talked about social engineering a little bit throughout the presentation. It doesn't matter if you're fully patched. It doesn't matter if you have the best IDS that money can buy. If you have a next-gen firewall. That's my latest buzzword that I like. Besides APT detection, I like that one too. Drink. It's been a while, so you're due for another. But all that doesn't matter if I can convince somebody to give me the data or convince them to do something that will just let me take it from them. So we're not going to step through social engineering attacks in this presentation because we're running out of time.
Well, just quickly, no tech hacking. Johnny wrote a great book.
Johnny Long wrote a great book on no-tech hacking. So dumpster diving, shoulder surfing, Google hacking, peer-to-peer networking, all that in your organization is not going to be protected by the next-gen firewall or APT protection. So we've seen shoulder surfing. This jackass actually took this picture of himself and posted it on Facebook, so. Also, bad choices doesn't really help either. Adware, you know what adware is. Here's an example of adware. You download something, it wants you to download something else, and then you get these pop-up boxes. And bad adware will actually spy on you, so spyware.
I'm convinced that the whole Java update thing is really a conspiracy to get you to install the Ask toolbar.
Yes, I agree. Well, you know, Oracle needs the money.
Oh, very.
Larry needs a new
So web attacks, you know, now it's not, this is where the social engineering is coming from. Where do all of our users go unfiltered usually? The internet. Why? Well, they need the internet to do their job. So now you see you're seeing web attacks. Now there's some appliances that allegedly protect you from web attacks, but generally the best thing to do is to get people to spot things that doesn't look quite right to them and just not go there or not click it. Simply visiting some sites will cause infections. Cross-site scripting, iframe attacks, there's different. Dave's famous Java applet. It works every time. So here's two examples of web attacks against lawyers that I use, which is West Virginia State Bar and the West Virginia Record, which is a newspaper for lawyers. So what do both of those sites have in common? Lawyers use them. And lawyers have
money.
no morals. No, money. So here in this case it was a web server that was compromised. You know, ad servers have low security. They're just trying to throw their ads up there and sell them. And as a result, the ad server was compromised, iframe attacks. So every time you went to West Virginia Record, you were getting popped. So data leakage. This is big for lawyers. Once again, I'm doing the lawyer example. Metadata awareness. You have to make people aware that there's this thing called metadata. And you have to make them aware that they shouldn't be handing metadata over to opposing counsel or anyone else who may use it against them. In West Virginia, they released the Lawyers Disciplinary Board released an advisory saying if you are sending out documents, you have a duty to expunge metadata. If you receive inadvertently metadata from opposing counsel, you can't use it, which is different than some states where it's open season. So some people use things like metadata and electronic discovery to try to find a smoking gun. So conclusions. Redlining and track changes. Your users need to know that you just don't go to final and it's done. It's done. This document's ready to send out to the hospital. Well, they'll be so happy. And they're not actually accepting or rejecting changes. And as a result, they get, you send out work product that has track changes in it. Track changes can be a problem if you're sending it to opposing counsel and you said, okay, I'm going to offer $1 million. No, I'm going to offer $500,000. If you have track changes turned on, they're going to see that and they're going to ask where their damn $1 million is. So metrics, this is a hard one. This is what I've come up with. This is what I've used in the past. I think we're going to have to do some more work on this before the book comes out, but I think you may have some more ideas than I do. Yes. So help desk tickets. Are users reporting suspicious activities? Are they talking about the emails they're getting from the Hong Kong businessman? Are they talking about the phone calls they're getting from Microsoft because their computers are infected with viruses? Just having them report these things are showing that your awareness program is at least going in the same direction. The other ones is user questions, well, like I said, and then downtime. Are you having less downtime? Which is another way of measuring it. But I think we're going to try to develop the metrics part of this presentation and this body. It'll be in the book. Buy the book. So this is my contact information and Valerie's contact information. And yes, that's photoshopped. Paid a lot of money for that. So you can find me on LinkedIn. Also check out the Security Awareness Training Framework. And if you have anything to add, please join our merry band of drunk idiots, and we'll work on it together. Because it's not just about us or about me and my viewpoints, it's about the community and moving security awareness training or security awareness education forward as something that we all need to focus on and work on. So,
I get the last slide. This is cool. Thank you.
Answer all the questions.
Thank you. I get to answer all the questions. We have like 4.5 minutes, if my timer is right, for questions. In the back.
So, all of this is great, but what do you guys say to, Bruce Schneider, this is all a waste of time. It's a waste of money, it's not what we should be spending money, it doesn't really work anyway.
It doesn't cost money. It really doesn't cost money. I mean, in the end, if you can throw it into your HR process when you come in, at least you're doing something. There's no one size fits all. There's not some magic bullet, but at least you're making an attempt to actually do what's right, and that's the only thing you can do.
Yeah, well, I mean, and the same argument goes with technology, right? There's no piece of technology that's 100% effective all the time. Same principles apply.
And I also respect his right to disagree. So, he's just wrong.
Okay, next question. Yeah.
One of the things I did not hear you say, and if you did, that I apologize, check an email, was, I guess in my view, an awareness program is Coca-Cola and Burger King advertising. This is an advertising program, regardless of how deep you get into it or how strategic and high level. Do you agree with that? This is basically an advertising program?
Oh yeah, you missed the whole, this is all about how you package it slides that I went over with your email.
That's something Valer emphasizes. It's absolutely right. You have to market this. You have to sell it. And you're constantly selling it. You have to constantly sell this program to people.
Yeah. Yeah, you.
Oh, you have my t-shirt.
You're wrong, Glenn. You have the right to be wrong. So the problem that I see, great, security awareness, but the problem that I think we're all struggling with, at least on the client side, is a culture of security, not a program of security awareness. So security has to permeate your organization, or this doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Okay?
Well,
People have to buy into the concept.
which brings us back to advertising, right? Because you're really influencing social change is what you're doing.
Influencing is not advertising.
Okay.
Okay? People have to trust you. People have to view security as something that is an enabler, a resource, helpful.
You're enabling their business. What you're regarding as their ability to make money in the end. You're enabling their business. It has to be a business enabler, not something that's going to throw up a wall.
So this is bolted on. It needs to be baked in.
I agree. Mike McCarthy over here in Blue Square.
A follow-up comment to the question of whether all this is effective at the end of the day. And I don't want to in any way promote a cynical view of this, but when selling this to your C-suite and upper management, understand that when the breach happens and when that litigation follows up, if you cannot answer the plaintiff's attorney's question of what was your user education program, and that's going to add dollar figures, at least 3 zeros to the end of that settlement.
That's correct.
So there is a cost to not doing it,
Yes.
even if it's not 100%.
And it's also, it's a covering your butt move, because when they say, how did this happen? Well, apparently you didn't come to security awareness training, and therefore you didn't do what you were supposed to do. But you're right, you have to have a program in place so that you can say, when the regulators showed up, this is what we did. We followed best practices, and we did the best to manage our risk and our exposure.
So, quick question for you. Are you speaking from experience? Not yet.
And it's not a matter, we all know this, I'm preaching to the choir again, it's not a matter of if you'll be breached, it's a matter of when.
And if you know it's already
And
happened.
I mean, a lot of people don't know they're breached for years. So, yeah, I think it already happened.
Now, when this comes all together, it's a very amazing thing to watch. So about 8 months ago, I had a long-term client come to me, and they said, we want you to do a really good phishing assessment, because we've been testing our users constantly, we educate them, we re-educate them, we don't just do this once a year. We want you to do a good phishing test, and I actually got to drop a real payload and really turn it into more of an external pen test, but your only in was through social engineering. So I sent 350 emails, and they were not all targeted, a couple of those were spear phishing, but most of them were more of a blanket one that was more valid to this organization. And I got 3 clicks. 3. Now, some of you will say, well, your awareness program failed, right? 3 people clicked. But guess what happened? Yes, they clicked. Yes, the payload dropped. And you know what? 5 minutes later, my shells were gone, because the other people that didn't click reported it.
Yeah.
And then they were able to use the technology that they had in place to find out who had clicked, what machines were infected, and they yanked them off the network. So when it all ties together, it will work. But we have to get away from this view of, well, one person clicked, so this is never going to be successful.
And we can't eliminate risk, we can only manage risk. This is really about risk management in the end. If you're managing your risk, you're doing the things that you should be doing, the positive things. So.
We got one more.
I got a question. How do you, do you have any recommendations for, what about satellite offices? At my company, we've got 1,500, 1,600 people in the home office, and if I can get them in a conference room, that's great. But then we've got over 300 locations where there's somewhere between 4 and 8 people working there.
Yeah.
I can't get them in a conference.
Do the best that you can is the only thing I can say. And just remember that if you can do in-person training, that it's better, but it may not be cost effective. I mean, in your case, that's going to cost money for you to go to 800 satellite offices. So you're going to have to look at maybe doing something online. But you're right. I mean, I don't have an easy answer.
If you have
Doing
good,
this having a security awareness program and having policies, at least you're doing the first steps. So all we can do is the best that we can do.
also, if you have VTC capability, that helps too. You pipe the video in, it's better than them just clicking, random slides in the middle of nowhere.
It costs money, but just
Oh,
showing
yeah,
up
okay.
once, gives you a face,
Yeah.
and then respond to it. I used to have to do home inspections of home user offices.
Ouch.
It was great, especially when that house is 80 years old and had carpet from the 70s, and animals. So lots of terrible things, but then the security team had a face, and they had somebody to contact, and they were much willing to contact when they had questions. They may have been stupid questions, but always answer them.
Questions, there's no stupid questions. I mean,
We need to go to our next class.
Indeed.
Staying here.
All right, we are getting the get off of the stage signal, so we're going to go out there.
We're getting this shut.